Pretty new car. So it's still sitting in the shop, basically. I have a rental car until the end of the month.
Okay.
Hopefully they get it done by the end of the month. So I don't have to pay for the rental car.
Did you have to worry about any deer in Colorado?
What's that? No. No, not like that, no. Cool. Thanks.
So we're going to be getting kudos from you.
You make copies for them?
Well, their council has this. They do not have copies of the.
On the third floor?
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So I can make copies.
Yeah. Make sure that's in
Yes.
here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no, I got it. How are you?
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what she's got, a cold or something or other.
Yeah, she left a week ago. I can know she left the 30th. I mean, she's gonna.
Yeah. I'll tell you landlord, hey, I'm not paying for it.
Yes, I did. Yep. From Minneota. I have not looked at that at the present time.
I haven't looked at it.
Like, no.
Not memorized?
There we go.
Mine doesn't stay off, so that's
We were in the,
if I want it off, I have to do the old poll.
we were in the clear, we were in the silence.
I see that people mine.
Okay. In the black. In the dark.
Yeah.
Sadly, not.
Is that where you advertise your rentals?
You asked me to wear one, I will.
How did it touch you?
Has he gave the story yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Come over to get him.
Yep.
Handicap. So he parks in the school drift, and she's going to get in. Thank you. In the school drift. Okay, most people have their walk scoop. No, that happened after.
That's not necessary.
When I'm ready, then
How's crew tonight?
I need something pretty good. One tomorrow. Same gang as before.
Good?
There you go. Which is perfect.
Good.
That's when you're right there.
That's the rule. That was last.
Well, geez, you got a hammer and every damn thing.
Just in case you get out of control.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
Or sand.
That must go into record too.
Okay. Just gonna say, I took a bath.
Send
Where's the information on the vicious dog information?
Oh, here.
Shouldn't it be in the front of the packet though?
I gave it to him as a handout.
No, I'm talking about the police report.
Oh, I never received the receipt.
You didn't put the police report in the packet?
I didn't get it.
I sent it to you.
I was looking for it too, Diane.
I need the,
Can you give me a police report?
Here,
We'll make a copy of that for the council.
Okay. It's 6:30, and I'm going to call the December 13th meeting of the Tracy City Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
everything all good, young man? Eric?
Yes, there is nothing, no changes to the agenda tonight.
Motion to approve is written.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, audience participation. Is there anyone present who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Hearing none, I will move on to item number 5, public hearing, vicious dog appeal. I will open the public hearing, and I turn to our city attorney, Matt Gross, to explain the situation and the proceedings.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is a vicious dog appeal pursuant to City Code 8.31. On November 9th, Chief Lichty classified a black lab as a vicious dog under City Code 8.31 Subdivision B. And that's after an allegation that said dog attacked another dog unprovoked. This is an appeal that has been filed by the dog owner. Pursuant to City Code, they have the opportunity to present evidence before the council to contest that classification of the dog being a vicious dog. In terms of the procedure, the chief and responding officer will present evidence to the council on why they classified said dog as vicious. The city council can ask questions of the officers, and the owner can also question the chief and Officer Markegard in regards to their findings and investigation. The owner then has the opportunity to present evidence and witnesses to the council to contest the determination of the classification as vicious dog. They have to present evidence that would change the council's mind, either that the dog didn't engage in that attack as said, or that it was provoked in some way. At the close of the record, then the council needs to evaluate the evidence submitted and make a determination whether the dog is vicious. So the council would be essentially affirming or overturning the classification of a vicious dog. The council then needs to vote on that, and if they affirm it, then that decision is final, subject to an appeal to the Minnesota Court of Appeals. Are there any questions from the council on that procedure, on how to proceed?
Is that clear to all council members?
Yep.
Procedure we're going to go through?
And essentially, what the council is going to be looking at is City Code Section 8.31, Subdivision 1B. And those are the definitions of what constitutes a vicious dog. So you need to weigh the evidence presented against that definition to come to your conclusion.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Are you going to call on Chief Lichty?
Yes, I'll have Chief Lichty present his findings and investigation.
Good evening. It's my understanding that on November 9th, I believe the owner of the Black Lab, who would be Mr. Delangel, it's my understanding from the officer's report that his child let the dog out. A female party who lives here in town was walking her Chihuahua on the street, I believe. Neither dog was tied to a leash or tethered at the time, and the black lab came out of the house and attacked the Chihuahua. And I spoke with the owner today, and she claimed that she had over $500 worth of vet bills. I spoke with a veterinarian today, and the vet claimed that she couldn't believe that the dog made it. Both the stomach and spleen were on the outside of the ripped stomach muscles that were torn, and she basically pushed the dog's innards back in and stitched him up and hoped he would survive, and he miraculously did. The dog's doing well today, but under our vicious dogs statute or ordinance, one animal that attacks another unprovoked classifies as a vicious animal, so that's why I followed through with the letter to the Dell Angels, and that's where we are here today.
Council questions. Chief, did I understand you to say that the dog was let out of the house, it was not on a leash?
Neither dog was on a leash at
Neither
the time
dog.
of the attack, no.
Okay. Mr. Del Angel?
Yes.
Would you like to ask questions of Chief Lipke?
Not really have a question. What it really was, I didn't talk to you. It was and he's not here either. I thought the other couple was
Mayor.
going to be here.
Mayor, we need to have
Him come.
call testimony on the mic, otherwise it can't be picked up by the recording, and
Thank
since
you
this
for
is a
that
legal
reminder.
proceeding.
Yes, thank you.
And this would just be, if you have any question, you'll have the opportunity to present any evidence that you want, but it'll just be any questions to the
Well, the
chief.
question is where oh, there he is. And that will be, I don't know who called it in or saying it was vicious, but the other dog was in my yard. My dog never went outside my yard or anything. So I don't know what you guys saying that she was walking the road when the dog was in the yard, in my yard. So
Through my investigation, when I was talking to the complainant in this case, she said she was on 8th Street. When I was talking to Mr. Del Angel, I believe he said that it was on the road or in the gutter, close to his yard, but not actually in the yard. Even so, I wouldn't believe that would be provoking of an animal to attack.
Would you state your name for the record too?
Officer Jordan Markyard.
And did you also conduct an investigation pursuant to this report?
Yep, I took the additional report.
Does the police department have any further evidence to present at this hearing?
Just the report from the veterinarian is there, explaining the injuries and what she did.
As for pictures, there was no pictures taken before. The female was very hysterical and wanted to get the dog to the vet as soon as possible. So there's no pictures taken of the injuries before. I asked her to send me some pictures of the surgery after, which I never received.
Any questions from council members of the police department?
I guess I have one, Seth. I'm kind of confused here. Neither dog was on a leash.
I was there. He wasn't. I was watching the boys.
We can't.
Yeah, speak up to the mic, please.
Name.
Jeff Bowers. Gio, the youngest boy is 5, was bringing his dog out to put him on the chain on the porch. Her dog was between the street and the porch up there taking a pee. And when Gigi came out, he saw that dog. I don't know if he thought it was a dog, a squirrel, or what. It was only this big. But he took off after it and just protecting his territory. And when he grabbed it, I told him to drop it and get back here. He dropped it and came back. He didn't have a dog on a leash. And that one would have been on a leash if her dog wouldn't be, or on a chain, if her dog wouldn't have been in the yard. They just saw it and ran down the steps after it. And if she had her dog on a leash, it never would have happened. It wouldn't have been in the yard. You know, they do have a leash law too. In this case, that whatever happens to her dog not on a leash, she's responsible for it.
Any council questions?
He didn't know that the dog was out there when he came out with it.
Say that again, please.
The youngest boy didn't know that that dog was in the yard when he came out with his dog. So it's not like he let her out to attack it or anything.
Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask of the officer?
Should we got a report of this, or a copy of the report from him, so we know what he said?
Yeah, we can get you.
Well, we should have had it by
It's
now,
right
shouldn't we?
there. The police report is right there on the table.
Okay.
It's 2 pages.
You can take a copy with you back to your seat if you'd like. Yeah. It's 2 pages. There's a second page. There you go.
I'm not sure how many questions we're supposed to be asking versus you running this or anything. Can I just ask a clarification?
Absolutely. The council can ask as many questions as you determine appropriate to make the right findings.
Okay. So what the last gentleman just pointed out was that the Chihuahua was on the he was saying it was on private property. But under vicious dogs, on number 2, it says when unprovoked inflicts bites on a human or domestic animal on public or private property. So does it really matter where the Chihuahua was when it was?
Yeah, it wasn't on a leash.
Sir.
So you have to weigh the facts to the definition, and when you look at subdivision 9, those are exemptions to the vicious dog. And there's B and C. There is nothing that exempts a vicious dog classification for the dog trespassing either on public or private property.
Where? I'm not seeing.
Number 9.
Number 9.
Bottom of the 3rd page.
Okay.
Okay, so explain that to me then, that
So B, I'll read it. Subdivision 9 of City Code 8.31. No dog may be declared vicious for injury or damage sustained by a person who is committing a willful trespass or other tort upon premises of the dog's owner.
So my question is, if the person walking the dog wasn't trespassing, but the dog was, explain that to me.
Is this more when a person is injured, I think, versus another animal?
That's the way that I interpret it, because willfulness is something that an individual has the capability of doing. However, an animal, that's a little bit different. So that's how I interpret that. it says sustained by a person. So that's injury to a person. That means if a person is trespassing upon another's property, that dog that injures that person would be exempt from a vicious dog classification. That only relates to an injury to a person, not to a dog.
So how does the dog determine that?
If you have questions, you can ask the council, sir.
And this dog is also a good companion.
Please come up to the mic.
Here at the podium, please. We'd like all comments from the public to be made at the podium so we can properly record it. Thank you.
So what's the difference if it's a dog that's trespassing on a person?
The difference is,
I couldn't hear him.
he said, what is the difference between if a dog was trespassing or a person?
I mean, as far as not being bit or anything, like
So the city code, if a person was trespassing and a dog bit that person, then that dog would not be classified vicious under the city code.
okay.
However, if a dog is trespassing, that is not applicable to the city code. So a dog attacking another dog on another's property would classify as a vicious dog under the city code.
Okay. Why?
That is the way the ordinance
Because it's her
is
dog. It could have just been her.
So you have to apply the ordinance as written, and that is the way it's written. So that's what the council is going to make the determination.
And it's also a registered companion dog. And the leash law says that she's responsible for anything that happens to her dog, not him. If it's not on a leash or on a retractable leash.
So just be mindful that whatever you say is part of the record. And when you address the council, it's to be presenting evidence, or if you have questions for witnesses that already testified. So making comments or questioning the council, that's not the appropriate procedure. If you want to make a statement, you can. Or if you want to question witnesses that have already presented, that's the function of going to the microphone, either getting clarification on what a witness said or information that's presented, or presenting evidence about what happened, what you observed, or what relates to the dog. So just be mindful of that.
Yes.
I have a question. So, in Tracy, I believe we have the leash law, right? Where you're supposed to have your dog on a leash every time you go for a walk.
I would defer to the chief. He could answer that question.
That's a separate issue, isn't it?
Correct. I mean, that is
That's not
separate
the issue
to.
we're here for.
That is separate to.
Well, it is because, so if I'm walking my dog in the street with no leash and my dog goes and bites someone, then it comes back, it falls to me because I didn't have my dog on a leash. In this town, it's a leash. You have to have your dog on a leash when you're outside walking your dog. So by that, you are responsible for your dog when you're walking in the road if your dog attacks a person, because it should have been in a leash. Because the quote here, you have the leash law, so they should have been in a leash.
Well, they both should have been.
Exactly, but the thing is, that dog was in my yard uninvited, and my little one was taking his dog outside to put in a leash so she can go party. By that, she didn't know that dog wasn't there until she came out and seen it. So here in Tracy, we have the leash law, so that falls on that person who was walking their dog with no leash. So that holds her responsible for her dog's actions by being uninvited and going to somebody else's yard. So is it you supposed to have your dog on a leash when you're walking, right?
The issue really isn't determined by whether or not either animal was leashed. The whole letter reflects that we're here because one animal attacked another animal unprovoked, and we can't have animals in town as pets that are going to cause injury to other animals, and that's why we have the vicious dog ordinance. So the vicious dog ordinance is in place so that we have some type of control or regulation over animals who are going to cause injury to other humans or other pets. So,
Could we have a clarification where the attack happened? I mean, was it on the boulevard?
I didn't witness it.
Well, it must have been. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, I'm just trying to get all the answers out there.
Sure. So, through my investigation, I was speaking to Mr. Bowers about it, and I asked, where did this actually happen? And he pointed to the middle of the road on 8th Street, right off of Morgan. So it would be in the road that the attack actually occurred, because I was looking for evidence of blood or other flesh parts of the animal that might have been laying there that would have indicated that this happened here.
So it was out in the street then?
Yes.
Were you able to find blood anywhere?
I was not.
It didn't happen in the street. That's where the dog was dropped when I hollered at it. He grabbed it in the yard. And the lady was there running, and she went out there, and I hollered, drop it, and get back here, and dropped it. She dropped it and came back. But it started in the yard. And the lady kind of just was there and made Gigi run around. You know.
Could you pinpoint a little bit more where in the yard, up by the house?
So the dog was right by the steps when the dog came out, when Gigi came out, and ran down and grabbed it, and she was right there, and it just kind of went from there. But
Thank you. Any other evidence to present or questions from either the police department or the property owner?
She's a emotional support dog, so I mean, I don't know if it counts. She's an emotional support dog, so you know, all she was doing what she's supposed to do. She's trained to watch them boys when they're outside, and by any means, if she feels threatened by another dog being in the yard uninvited, I mean, she did what she did. You know, I don't have an excuse for it, but other thing, the dog should have never been in my yard too. You know, if she has never chased a dog when someone's walking, I have neighbors with dogs, they always walk with their dog on a leash. She never goes after any other dog because they're walking on a leash. So, other than that, she's never been aggressive. I had it since she was a puppy, and she's trained, and the only reason she went after that one is because it was in the yard, and the lady didn't have a leash on that dog. So, other than that, so many people walk by my house with dogs in their leash. She has never gone after them. When she's seen someone walking a dog with the leash, she goes back in the stairs and she sits until they go by, and then she goes back and plays. So.
Mr. DelAngel, do you have any other evidence to present or any witnesses?
I do. I have that they know my dog. They've been to the house and never, you know. And then I believe my wife, she's outside. She couldn't get in, so.
Would you like to speak? Additional witnesses?
I can't read. Alright, do you guys know what the Fourth Amendment is? Do you guys know? Could you guys answer me? Do you guys understand me? Oh, okay. The Fourth Amendment is, it says of the U.S. Constitution provides in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by the oath or affirmation in particular. So you guys can't just take away the life of a dog. Like, that's wrong, and especially if the woman that was walking the dog walked the dog without a leash. Thank you.
Any questions from the council?
Just as a reminder, any party that presents evidence, it has to be relevant to evidence or knowledge they have about the dog or the classification of it being a vicious dog. So keep in mind that it has to be relevant to that purview.
How do we know that before they talk?
Well, it should relate to the dog or their observation.
No, I understand
yeah.
what you're saying, but then how do we know before they actually get up there what they're...
You can remind them of that before they... And that was the purpose of my comment there.
Thank you, Matt.
Mayor, I've got one more thing I want to enter in the record too. On November 2nd, which hasn't been stated yet, that there was a letter that was sent to the folks with the vicious dog. That letter was sent via certified mail, which is our code, as our code requires. We have the certificate of mailing of that happening. I wanted to make sure that that was on the public record, that we followed the procedure that we were supposed to follow. I did receive, the code also indicates that we have to receive an appeal from them to the city administrator, which would be me, which I also received in time, which is why we're having this tonight. But just for the record, so you know that those communications took place in case that questions come up later.
Okay. Does anyone else have any testimony or evidence to present regarding this vicious dog determination or anything about the nature of the dog and what happened?
I think this whole thing is unfair because you guys want to kill a dog that was just protecting a child that she knows is completely unfair. So please think about that. Think about how the woman was being irresponsible walking her dog without a leash.
Young man, I hear what you're saying, but what if that would have been a person that the dog attacked? And worse yet, nobody misunderstand me, worse yet, if this goes unaddressed, and then the next time it is a person, then how is everyone gonna feel? So we gotta kind of think around the whole thing here. Maybe this has never happened before, and maybe it'll never happen again, who knows, but what if?
I have a response that I have to right.
That's, like I said, she has never gone after a person. That little boy right there, that's his dog. She plays with him. I don't know if you guys ever heard a dog playing hide and seek, even going to count till they tell her that it's her turn. She goes and sits until they tell him, okay, it's time. She goes and looks for them. Like I said, she has never gone after any other dog. There's people by my house with dogs. She goes outside, plays with my neighbor's dog. The only reason she did what she did was because that dog was in the yard and they were outside. That was the only reason she chased that dog. Other than that, if that dog would have been in a leash and the lady would have been walking on the street, that would have never happened because she knows that there's a dog there walking, just people walking. So, by that says like it's the lady's fault that she's supposed to have a leash on her dog. Other than that, if the dog is walking the street with the lady next to her, she wouldn't even bother to do anything.
Thank you, Mr. DeLangelo. I'm going to have to interrupt you for just a moment. It's 7 o'clock, and we have another hearing scheduled at 7 p.m. for the Truth and Taxation public hearing. And what I would like to do with the consent of the council is I would just like to recess this public hearing on the vicious dog issue, and then I want to open the public hearing on the Truth and Taxation public hearing, but then immediately recess that public hearing on Truth and Taxation hearing. And then, so we can go right back to this vicious dog public hearing and resolve this issue before going on to the Truth and Taxation. Is that all right with everyone? Could I have a motion to do that, to recess this hearing?
I'll make that motion to recess this hearing to go to the Truth and Taxation hearing. And then recess that to come right back to the vicious dog hearing.
Second.
Okay, do we need to have a roll call on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've recessed the vicious dog hearing for just a moment, and can I have a motion to open the Truth and Taxation hearing?
Motion to open the Truth and Taxation hearing.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're open, and then we're going to have another hearing to recess the Truth and Taxation hearing until going back to the vicious dog hearing. Okay? So, I'm just going to reopen then the public hearing on the vicious dog hearing. Do we have any more testimony or evidence to present? Any questions from the council regarding the witnesses?
I guess I have one question. When this dog is outside playing with the kids, is that dog on a leash?
Yes. Oh. It's on a chain, cable.
I'm going to ask one more time if anyone from the participants, I guess we do have one more comment here.
Okay. Say your name. This is my son Giovanni. We've had Gigi for a very long time. She's well trained. I've never had any issues with her. Never had her attack anybody or go after anybody. I'm pretty sure, as my husband has mentioned, the reason she is overprotective is because my son was attacked by one of our neighbor's dogs, and she got him like right by the back of the neck. So the reason she's very upset is because she didn't get the chance to go after that dog because she was on a leash. So every time they're outside and his dog is outside, she's very overprotective, but she will never go after anybody. I just want you guys to think about, it's not me, it's not anybody else. I know you guys have to think about the public too, but it's going to crush his dream of having his dog with him because she sleeps with him, she does everything with him. I just wouldn't want to put her in a kennel all the time because she's not a bad dog. Want to say something? Okay.
What's your name, ma'am?
Maria.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Jason, since you're the chief. It's not a requirement that they have to put the dog down.
No, it's not.
There's steps they can take to be able to keep the dog as a family pet.
There is, under the vicious dog ordinance, it requires stipulations like short tethers, muzzled while it's outside in public, kennel restrictions with bases and roof structures. If they get the dog out of town, that meets the requirements. We just don't want the dog in town. I mean, if they relocate it to a family farm or something like that, we're not telling them they have to destroy the animal by any means. So.
And the dog can still be in their house. It doesn't have to be in a kennel all the time. It can be in the house with the children in that.
It can, but we do require insurance on the dog, which is very tough to get. They'll have to provide a policy covering, insurance on the dog if they do keep it in the house. If once it leaves the house or goes outside, it'll have to follow all the vicious dog issues. So, stipulations in the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify because a lot of the discussion is about putting the dog down.
Right.
That wasn't part of this. But it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory.
Okay.
I have another question for you before you go back. So, does this possibly mean the dog has to be muzzled every time it goes outside, or that's only a stipulation if that was put in there, or that's mandatory, or?
It's part of the vicious dog ordinance, yes. If they keep a vicious animal on their property, they're required to follow the requirements.
Those rules?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call one more time for any other further questions or witnesses or evidence or questions from the council of those that have testified.
Can I make a comment up here?
Yes?
You guys are going to decide this, you don't even know the dog. This dog is not vicious. And you're going to tell them it's a vicious dog and you've never even seen the dog. How do you do that?
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn it over to the council for discussion and action on whether to uphold the police department's finding of this animal being a vicious dog or to overrule the finding. So, what is the council's wishes?
Well, I'm sure the dog is a very nice dog, but I think it's going to open the city up for some liability if we don't act on this and then the dog mistakenly does that to a human or another dog. I think our hands are kind of tied. The report was made. It's unfortunate, but if we don't follow through with it, I believe we might just have trouble down the road. I've been around people's dogs that are very protective of their kids. And they've grabbed a hold of my pants and not bit me, but they've done that, and it's scary. And the dog is just doing what it's supposed to do, take care of the kids. And all I was doing is standing there talking to them. So it's a fine line there, but I'm a little bit worried if we don't do what the police department suggests from their findings, we could be in trouble down the road.
Well, I think the reason we have these ordinances and everything and laws is to follow them. We've asked the police to enforce our ordinances and everything, and that is what they are doing with this. There is a formal complaint made by the other dog's owner. There's a police report to show that. It says right in our ordinance that, you know, unprovoked, and it can be on private property. You know, the whole leash thing is another thing that hopefully will be addressed, but that's not part of this hearing, because I do agree that everyone should follow the leash rule or law.
Because without the leash.
Sir, the public comment period is over. Sorry.
But I right now, I personally feel it's pretty clear here for this issue what we need to do.
The council just needs to weigh the evidence that's presented with the definition as defined in the city code and whether any of the exceptions apply. That's really what the council's job is to determine. Is it a vicious dog as defined by section 8.31, subdivision 1B, 2 or 3, and does any of the exemptions in subdivision 9 apply, which would exempt it from being a vicious dog? That's for the council to determine tonight.
What do you think? Does this incident and this dog meet the city code's definition of a vicious dog?
So right now, are you looking for a motion or for
entertain a motion?
Well, I'll entertain a motion. I mean, I've already said my piece. I was waiting if anyone else was going to say anything, but I'll make a motion that we find that the dog in question here, Gigi, I believe her name is. I mean, it is a family pet, so I will say Gigi, was unprovoked and meets the standard under B2. And I do not feel the exemptions are met because B is concerning sustained by a person, and this was not a person that was harmed. This was a dog that could not choose willfully if it was trespassing or not.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
So I guess, Jerry, are you labeling this dog vicious? Is that what you're telling me? I'm confused on what you're saying.
It will be, yes. It will be labeled a vicious dog.
We'd be upholding the police department's findings.
Correct.
Any further discussion or questions? Let's call for a roll call.
Randall.
Aye.
Teagues.
Aye.
Koopman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Howell.
Aye. Just by going with our city ordinance, you know, unfortunately we have to go by this.
And Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes.
The I don't know, too late for that, but we forgot to make sure they had the extra insurance, or is that in all this?
That- that'll be what-
It's in all of it?
Yep. Yeah, so we'll make sure that those are followed, and then ultimately there'll be a letter that will go out to these folks probably by tomorrow, indicating what the finding of the city council was. And is it all right if Matt draft that letter with the council? Is that all right if he does that?
Consistent with the findings tonight, I can draft essentially a findings of fact that the council made that decision, and then we can serve that upon the owners along with the requirements that they're required to follow under the city code.
Matt, would you suggest that because the mayor is sick tonight that the mayor pro tem sign that letter since he was part of this public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you to everyone who attended and presented testimony. All right, we will have to go back then to the public hearing on the truth and taxation. Eric, you have a presentation to make on the truth and taxation?
Krista does, yes. And I'm gonna, actually, she needs to plug her computer in. Can I give you this, Diane?
Mm-hmm.
Krista has a presentation. We'll make it as brief as possible. I realize that we've discussed this budget multiple times already, but I think it's important for the public record to get a lot of these things, on the record as well. And then what you have in front of you is you have 3 resolutions that will officially adopt the 2020 year fiscal budget. One certifying the tax levy, one adopting the budget, and one authorizing the fee schedule for 2022. And if Krista's ready.
Can you guys see this okay? You want me to turn it?
Yeah, probably turn it a little bit. All right, I'll turn it over to Krista for that.
All right. Like Eric said, we'll be pretty brief. We've gone over the budget several times in the last several months. Just some highlights of this year's budget. We maximized our resources while remaining fiscally responsible with our 2022 budget. The budget is really a reflection of your priorities as a council for the city of Tracy. Maintains all government services and addresses our long-term debt challenges and capital improvement needs. One of the big resources and investments that the city made for 2021 was our new software and chart of accounts, and I know we've talked about that several times throughout this last year, and that has really allowed us the ability to meet all of these goals and work towards the goals the city wants, or the council wants to see for the city. With that, again, we've seen these goals several times, but we really strive to create the budget with these goals in mind. First goal, developing a new housing plan for families. We will be applying for another small cities grant in 2022 once the current grant is used up, which should happen sometime early part of this next year. And then the comprehensive plan was helpful in identifying strategies to promote new housing. The second goal was develop a marketing program to promote the city of Tracy. In 2021, we received the National EDA grant to help provide technical assistance to 20 local businesses. That's been up and running for a few months now, with more to come next year, including the downtown Wi-Fi.
Hey, Krista, is the Tracy and the EDA, are they one of the 20 entities receiving this training? On
No, they're all private businesses.
Okay,
We didn't, the liquor store or any government businesses are not. It's just all private businesses that are owned and run here in Tracy.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Jeff is also working on a new movers pilot program to incentivize people to work and live in Tracy. And then we are looking into an additional grant for possible downtown historic district, and then historic district designation for City Hall and Central Park. The third goal was to promote a well-maintained infrastructure. We are still anticipating the $1.8 million investment from Lyon County for Center Street. We have some available ARPA funds that will allow us to upgrade our SCADA system at the water plant, which is severely outdated. The city will be investing in capital projects and additional street maintenance and aquatic center maintenance in 2022. The Phase 3 street project will be substantially complete next year. The other piece in addition to Center Street is the pond decommissioning, which will be bid early next year. And then the final two goals, one being design and build a multi-purpose center. Continued focus for 2022. We now have reserved $164,000 for a new center. We will have a resolution later this evening for a donation we received of $25,000. So that $164,000 includes that. And then the community center work group and you as a council has started focusing on private fundraising for a community center. And then the final goal, to encourage citywide beautification. We still are working on the nude code enforcement process. We're still in the setup phase with Cassell. That's something that I will be able to focus more on after we get past this budget process. So the rest of December will be spent working on that. The Parks Committee is focused on a master plan for Central Park, and we will apply for another DNR grant next year for improvements to Central Park as well. So that brings us to our financial summary for 2022. We are projecting a net position or fund balance increase of just over $208,000 for next year. Our operational costs are going to remain pretty flat for 2022, but we will maintain a steady level of service throughout the city. We are using some of the cost savings that we're realizing and the increase in the tax levy on capital improvements. And we'll walk through some of those capital improvements in a bit. And we've all seen the debt service graph several times. Just another reminder, we will see a decline in debt service in 2022, but then it will significantly increase in 23 through 25 due to the refinancing of the 2019 temporary bonds into long-term bonds. Managing debt service will be a challenge until we start to see a decline again in 2026. And then our capital improvement plan, as you'll remember, we sat down and prioritized our capital improvements. This plan includes projects that can be funded over the next 5 years. It also assumes a 7% per year tax levy increase, and then minimal increases to operational costs and personnel along those 5 years as well. We have $1.8 million in requested projects that were taken off the list, but we will continue to evaluate those annually as needs change throughout the next 5 years. Just a quick rundown of the general fund, debt service, and capital outlay funds. Due to capital projects, the fund balance is estimated to decrease about $2 million. Most of that is the use of bond proceeds on the infrastructure projects. Debt service includes all of our bonds. And then we also have included an $88,000 transfer from the sewer fund for additional street maintenance in 2022. We had a large $300,000 street maintenance project this year with the seal coating and all the patchwork that Shane completed. We plan to do about $88,000 more next year. And then a look at our enterprise funds. Deputy Registrar, we are estimating to transfer almost $66,000 to the general fund in 2022 as profits from the Deputy Registrar fund. Our volume is projected to come down next year a little bit. 2021, we saw a pretty big increase just because we were one of a few locations that was actually open. And now that more of the locations are starting to open back up again, our numbers are gonna come down. And then the other piece of that, the driver's license requirement for real or enhanced IDs was pushed to May of 2023. So we don't have as many people coming in getting those IDs at this time. It was supposed to be October of 21, I believe. And then earlier this year, it was pushed to 23. For boxcar liquors, we are projecting a 6.13% increase in sales over this year. Part of that is price increases that we've implemented, and then also plans to continue increasing sales at the liquor store. We did budget for the industry average of an 8% bottom line for 2022. With that, we are projecting we will transfer $97,000 to the general fund for 22. And then the utility accounts and funds, per the rate study that was done in 2020, we are increasing sewer rates 8%. And then, like I said, the $88,000 will be transferred from the sewer fund to the general fund for street maintenance. We're expected to increase our net position about $78,000 at the end of 2022. Water utility is going up 3%, and another increase in net position of about $42,000. And then the storm sewer rates will go up to $5.25 from $5 per month. The increases in net position in these three funds will primarily be used to cover debt service over the next several years, especially as we see that continue to climb. And then also set the city up for future infrastructure improvement needs. That is all I have. Any questions? It was super fast, but thank you.
Krista, the $97,000 and that's being transferred from the liquor store fund to the general fund. How much is of that is going toward repaying the remodeling costs for the liquor store? Or what's it? Refresh my memory on that.
That the second half of that loan will be paid out at the end of paid back to the general fund at the end of this year.
Oh.
Yep, at the end of 2021. So that is all just profit back to the general fund, or into the general fund.
Okay. Council, questions on Krista's presentation? Thank you, Krista.
As far as the fee schedule goes, I have the council communication. Do you want highlights of what's changed before you discuss that resolution, or?
All those were highlighted in yellow.
They were all highlighted in yellow, yes.
Like the campground, it's regardless of what site you have, it's
a flat rate per night, per week, or per month.
Gotcha.
Yep, those were kind of the biggest changes. We did add the $200 deposit for all utility customers instead of just renters.
So that's all new utility customers?
Just new utility customers,
okay.
Yep.
But we're also straightened out the issue we had where they were kind of lost in the system, so that if the house is sold or different multiple renters in a short period of time, that's no longer going to be an issue for us.
Correct, yes. We put processes in place to make sure we're catching those.
Good, very good. Excellent.
Okay, I noticed that the plumbing license had been increased this year from $15. It's been, I support that. It's been $15 for a lot of years.
30, and I think we went to 50, right? Yeah. That was one Shane suggested, or was it you that suggested it? Somebody suggested it.
It'll at least cover your paperwork and administrative costs.
Any other questions for me? No? All right. Thank you.
Okay, council, does anyone have any other questions about the budget? Do you want to make some changes in the budget?
Nope. Changed enough numbers enough too many times.
Meet our deadline.
Mayor, I think you should ask if there's any from the public who'd like to testify in this item.
Well, I'm getting to that here. We do have our truth and taxation public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment or ask questions about the proposed budget? If not, I will close the public hearing and we will refer to the council for further discussion and action. And thank you for that correction of point of order. So what are the council's wishes here?
I have none. I'd just make a motion to approve 2021-112, adopting the final tax levy for the 2022 fiscal year.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Van Dyke.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Teagues.
Aye.
Krugman.
Yes.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. Okay, next, another resolution that's also related to the budget. Resolution approving the 2022 budget. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2021-113?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further?
Question.
Yeah.
Now, I'm quite new at this, so bear with me. This business with the ambulance that's not settled 100% yet, where does that come in on all these things we're doing?
That's a good question, council member. There is no money currently in the budget for the ambulance. You have a meeting on January 6th to discuss that issue. Depending on the outcome of that discussion, we will come back and amend the budget basically, at the beginning of next year. As you know, we do that on a fairly regular basis anyway. And so at that point, depending on what your decisions are, there may be other adjustments to the budget that affects. But ultimately, there's nothing in here for the ambulance at all because that decision has not been made.
Should we have something in there so that it makes it easier? Or is it too late for that?
It's not too late, but I don't think it makes any difference in terms of it being easier. Any change is kind of the same, whether you add or subtract or whatever, if that makes sense.
I guess kind of how I'm looking at the issue of the ambulance funding is that we do have that $60,000 in that hospital fund or healthcare fund that we could, or at least when we had this discussion last time, that was in my mind that we were going to be allocating some of those funds toward the ambulance.
Okay, that's good. I'm all right with that, just so that what we do here tonight don't shut the door on that discussion.
Not even close to shutting that door.
Any other discussion? Good point, George.
I'll bring up under mayor and council communications on the ambulance service later on.
Yeah, well, we've got that coming up, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Otherwise, hearing no further discussion, I'll call for a roll call.
Tao.
Aye.
Van Dyke.
Aye.
Teagues.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Krugman.
Yes.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. All right. We then have the resolution authorizing the adoption of our annual fee schedule for 2022 that Krista just mentioned.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution 2021 2022-114. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this resolution to adopt a new fee schedule for 2022? Hearing no further discussion, could we please have roll call?
Tell.
Aye.
Whitman.
Yes.
Teagues.
Aye.
Landine.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. All right, the resolution passes. We will move down to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the November 22nd council minutes?
I'll do them all. Motion to approve the 2020 or November 22nd council minutes, municipal accounts payable and the payroll without breakthrough beverage. Approve the planning commission minutes. Approve the park committee minutes, the two of them. Approve the Tracy Relief Association minutes for October and November.
Second.
Any discussion on the approval of the entire consent calendar? If not, I'll call for the roll call.
Teagues.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Tell.
Aye.
Landine.
Aye.
Whitman.
Yes.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. All right, under mayor and council.
We got one more.
Have to approve the municipal accounts payable for breakthrough beverage.
Oh, okay, yeah. I
Couldn't we
stand
just
corrected.
skip that?
Sure, go ahead. You
Okay.
won't get any
All
liquor
right,
anymore.
Could I
Go
have
ahead.
a motion?
I'll second that motion.
Second?
It wasn't a first.
Second, okay. Roll call, please.
George. Landine.
Aye.
Tell.
Aye.
Whitman.
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. All right, now we move down to mayor and council communications. What do my fellow council members have?
Well, last time we voted on this for $17,000, we had 5 yes votes and 2 no votes. I want to make it quite clear on the no votes that I was in favor of more money. The other vote was in favor of too much money.
And that was in
I want to make
regards
that
to,
clear.
that was in regards then to the motion on ambulance funding.
Yes.
In November.
Right.
Okay. All right. Any other mayor council communications? I've got just a couple things. One, I've heard a couple different positive comments. People quite pleased with how quickly our city crew got out and cleared off the sidewalks and the streets after our first major snowstorm. And since we did have some activity going on at the VMC a tournament, that was much appreciated, and people were able to get into the tournament and in and out of the stores. So that was good, considering the amount of snow that we have. And then also, in regards to the establishment of our new Tracy Foundation, I just want to say that I got a phone call this morning with a pledge of an additional $2,500. So once that money comes in, we will be at our $25,000 goal. So I want to thank everyone who's contributed to that very worthy endowment fund. And of course, further contributions will still be accepted. But we did reach our $25,000 goal, and I understand that the foundation board held an organizational meeting last week, and they elected officers. So,
Do you know who the officers are?
I believe Shane Erickson is the chairman.
That's correct. I was at the meeting. I can tell you that Shane Erickson was elected the chairman. Doria Drost is the vice chairwoman. Rhonda Fredericks is the secretary, and Tony Peterson is the treasurer.
So stay tuned on that.
And there are 11 members on the board, and don't ask me to give you the rest of their names. I'm sorry, I couldn't do that.
So, progress is being made. Anything else for mayor and council communications? I probably should just insert here that unless some unforeseen emergency arises, this will be our last council meeting for the 2021. I want to thank, on the behalf of Mayor Pam Corman and the rest of the council, thank you for everyone who's made this a successful year for the city of Tracy. Our mayor was unable to attend because of illness tonight. So our next scheduled meeting is, well, there's going to be a work session on Thursday, January 6th, but our first official meeting for 2022 will be Monday, January 10th. That's typically has been kind of a reorganizational meeting to get started on the coming year.
When was it? January what?
10th.
January 10th. All right, we'll move on, unless there's other mayor council communications, we'll move on to staff reports. Eric, city administration reports.
I have just a brief presentation as well that is going to highlight kind of our accomplishments for the year. I think I had mentioned to the city council previously that we had planned to do and will do an annual report to the public. That'll really, the 2021 annual report will really happen in the first part of 2022, because then we'll have, you know, the kind of the year close and some of the unadded financial numbers and things like that. But this presentation is essentially a basis of that. What you're going to see here tonight is really a team effort. It involves the leadership and the goal setting of the city council. It involves the engagement of the public. It involves private sector businesses in town and our government partners, and obviously the city staff and everybody else that's involved. And so this is very much, you know, a community effort when we talk about the accomplishment of the goals. When we thought about this, Diane and I actually worked on this a bit between the two of us. We thought about the things that we accomplished this year, and we realized that we really wanted to focus in on kind of the mission that was adopted by the city council. This mission was originally adopted in 2020 by the previous council and then reaffirmed earlier this year by this council as well. You might ask, what is the mission? Well, that's the task or purpose that needs to be carried out by a group of people. And that group of people is us, which is that the city of Tracy provides high quality, efficient, and professional services to the public we serve. We strive to involve the public and grow our community with a fiscally responsible government. And those are the things that we've been trying to accomplish over the last year. So we thought about a theme, and we really think that the theme for 2021, a great theme, is community. The first one is about community engagement, which is in the mission in terms of evolving the public. We completed a website redesign and a new logo. That's about improving kind of our representation to the public, improving our branding, improving that customer experience. So when they go to the website, that they can get good information about the city. We launched the first comprehensive plan effort in 20 years. That will be completed in the first part of 2022, because it takes about a year to do, and we didn't start till March or April earlier this year. That included a citizen survey, not even the first survey that we did in the last year, but it's the second one. It included a citizen committee that's involved in that, and focus groups, some of which you read about in the paper recently. So this is really about engaging the public in what we want the city to look like now and into the future. That's what that comprehensive plan effort is about. We work with, you worked with citizens on a temporary senior center location, which is at the Eagles Club, and the community center work group in that project, and the community foundation and everything else. And, you know, at times, I'm sure, as a city council, it certainly felt this way for me, that could be kind of a painful process, you know, when you have people that have disagreements about how you're going to move forward. I think that it's probably, if you think about it at the 30,000 foot level, every community is going to have a certain amount of conflict. That's just the nature of people, right? You've got people of all different shapes and sizes that live in this community, beliefs and ages and all different kinds of folks. And you're going to have, no one is going to disagree. It's like having a really big family. You know, you're just not going to have everybody agree all the time. The difference between successful communities and unsuccessful communities is the successful communities work together to resolve those issues and provide a forum for people to do that. And so that community center work group, the community foundation group for fundraising, all of those things that you've done in terms of holding public hearings and listening to people as a city council, that provides a forum for people to talk about these issues. And that's a positive development, you know, from my perspective. You know, those things aren't swept under the rug, and you know, I think it helps to have those. In addition to that community engagement, you as a city council created and supported a citizen park committee, which is going to result in a master plan for Central Park, and that's going to help us on future improvements as well as grant applications. The programs that we put together for Movies in the Park and Aloha Night and some other ideas we have, and actually, you know, this coming Friday we're having a movie here at the VMC as well. You know, these are the kinds of things that bring the community together. That's about engaging the community and involving the public. We've never done before, and they were pretty successful. I think that the park shelter that's being built right now, that included help from the school kids and Carl Campbell's class and the Lions Club in terms of fundraising, and you allocating some money to be able to do that, to build a new park shelter, that's a really good model for how you can get things done in a community. You know, you bring people together and say, well, we'll give you some money, and here's a little bit of labor, and all of a sudden we're going to have this you know, new shelter that's going to replace one that's 50 years old. It will be complete in the spring, but we started it this year. Thinking about, you know, how do you do projects like this moving into the future is a really good model. The second kind of big thing that's in the mission is about community investment, which is really about growing the community. You know, as you invest capital improvements into the community, that's helping the community. The first one, really huge one, was already mentioned earlier tonight, over $300,000 just for street maintenance. So we went out and we found the financial resources in the sewer fund. The Public Works Director and I worked together to create kind of an asset management program, and our engineer, actually, ISG2, for the city street maintenance, where we looked at every single street. We kind of graded it and said, well, what does this street need, and what do we need to do to improve it? Is it filling a pothole? Is it an overlay? Is it the seal coating that we did? Is it crack sealing? Those kinds of things. And I think that that's resulted in a marked improvement in the quality of the streets. And that was a big emphasis of the City Council last year, and we'll continue that in 2022. We gained a grant and completed a survey of properties downtown, and that's going to help us access grant money that will also provide future improvement into community buildings and potentially private buildings downtown. We put a lot more money into enhanced park maintenance this year. The list that we presented to you earlier in the year of park maintenance, more than half of that was done. Painting of the benches, for example. You know, we went out and you know, did a lot of ball fields repair. These are the kinds of small things you don't really see a lot, but you know, when you put a gate out there between the two fields at Sebastian Park so that people can walk between them, so that they're not tearing down the fence and tearing it apart every time to get between the two fields, well, that makes a difference, and that's something we did, for example, that you can see out there. The new bike service, the new bridge out at
Swift Lake.
Thank you. It just went right out of my brain. Swift Lake Park. Things like that. So we actually spent a lot of time on parks, and that was part of your beautification goal as well. We secured $1.8 million. We don't have the money yet, but we have a commitment from Lyon County to do that for Center Street next year. We looked at, where are we at with the street project and what do we need to do? And so we brought to you a plan, and you approved that plan to kind of reallocate that phase 3 so that we could complete the sewer pond decommissioning and take advantage of that additional money that we got from Lyon County. And that's going to maximize our investments in the community. So we get through that project and make sure that we complete the priorities that are there. We applied for a grant and received, will be receiving, we haven't received that money yet because you have to spend it first before you get reimbursed. $111,000 in federal grants. That's for downtown Wi-Fi, a new website to help promote the community, as well as the online marketing technical assistance to 20 Tracy businesses. This has never been done before. I've talked about this, but we're going to be real curious to see how this goes. Each one of these businesses has met with the consultants that we hired and are working on their web stuff. And so, I don't know if you're on Facebook, but you can see the Cinnamon Hen is posting pretty regular stuff these days. And that's part of us working with them, for example, and being able to do that. And so, just helping folks market their business a little bit more. The last one, kind of theme, I guess you could say, would be community stewardship, and that's about having a fiscally responsible government. This year, we implemented a new financial system. We put our building permits online as opposed to paper. We now have an online work order system, so instead of somebody filling out a piece of paper and faxing it over to the water department, we just put it in the computer. It sends them in communication, and they have a little iPad that they get every day, and it tells them where they're supposed to go if they've got somebody they need to disconnect, or they've got to go do a repair on a curb stop or whatever it is. It has really amazingly increased our efficiency in that office. Just our accounts payable. I was talking to Peggy the other day, and I said, well, what do you think that this really has increased? She says, it's got to be at least a 90% increase in efficiency in terms of what we do around there. Because you don't have so much paper, you can do things a lot quicker. Just our accounts payable alone went from an all-day process to 45 minutes a week. That's an unbelievable, we gained almost a whole work day's worth of productivity a week just in that process alone. This allows us to do a lot of things that we didn't used to be able to do. So like the insurance reviews that you're seeing. We've been able to do a study on, look at our pay for our personnel in comparison to other communities that we presented to the city staff, and we'll give to you a little bit later when we talk about some of the stuff next year. The review of the personnel policy, all of our risk management stuff, going around and making sure that all the fire extinguishers are not expired, so that if we have a fire in the building that they work. Things like this that are going to make a big difference in terms of the services that we provide. We couldn't do those things before because we were spending all of our time just trying to keep up with our system. So, massively improved financial system. As one of the results, actually, of having a better system to track and knowing where our money is going and where it's coming from, is that we're anticipating, and we're hoping it's even a little better than this, about $88,000 in savings in the 2021 budget compared to the budget. That's a significant chunk of money, that can go back into the community to be invested. As I already indicated, you've got a new finance director, which has made a big difference in terms of our ability to get things right the first time. New chart of accounts, new software. We've got better financial transparency than we've ever had. We put our quarterly financial reports on the website now so that people can see it. We give you quarterly financial reports now. We weren't able to do that before because we literally couldn't pull the report out of Banyan. Better expense tracking, a lot more transparency in that, and you can see that reflected in the budget and the financial reports you get. This year we created the city's first sustainable 5-year capital improvement plan. That was a collaborative process. You asked the staff to kind of rank what our most important capital projects were. We did that. We brought that back to you as a city council. You ranked what they were, and ultimately what you're seeing is capital projects that are your priorities. In the past, the capital improvement plan was more of a wish list of projects. What we have here is a collaborative, fiscally responsible plan that we can afford. We invested over $300,000 this last year in grants and loans for homeowner rehabilitation through the Small Cities Grant. We also supported the launch of 3 new businesses through grants and loans. And overall, I think 2021 was pretty productive. You as a city council really came together on a very clear set of priorities. And even though sometimes it's painful, you made some pretty decisive choices in terms of what you wanted to do. The budget tonight was a pretty clear and decisive choice. Issues related to the community center in terms of what you could afford to invest, a very clear and decisive choice. And so you should give yourselves, some pat on the back for those kinds of things, because it was really important. I feel like the city staff worked collaboratively to implement these priorities, and we grew a lot of our skills this year that we didn't have before as we brought new people in and asked people to do some things that they'd never done before. And they really stepped up to the plate and did it. And I believe that the citizens have been engaged to the extent that, we haven't seen in recent years. We completed a couple of citizen surveys. We've got 3 new citizen committees that didn't exist before. And plus the Community Foundation, which isn't even a city one, but that's independent, but that's a whole different group of people working together to try to make the community a better place. And the additional community events that we added this year that we haven't had in the past. And so more citizen engagement as well. So as I mentioned early in the presentation, this is really about citizen engagement, or everybody working together, the city council, the staff, the citizens, everybody working together to accomplish these goals. And we did quite a lot in 2021, and a lot of these things are going to spill over into 2022 because we're still working on completing a lot of these projects. But overall, I think it was a pretty good year. And with that, Mayor, that's my kind of annual report and my city administrative report for this meeting. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council members, questions you have for Eric? Yeah, I personally think we are making a lot of, in the big picture, progress. It's easy to nitpick some problems that come up, and but then when you look at the big picture, I think we have a lot of good things going. I'm personally happy that we're able to do the amount of capital improvements that we've got budgeted for the coming year. But the caveat that we've got a lot of, what was it, 1.8 million in deferred capital improvement needs that are not in the 5-year budget. So
at least that much. It's probably more in reality.
So we do have our work cut out for us, but it was. I've gotten a lot of comments about this. People pleased with the street work that we did get done this year, and I think capital improvements that. It's a pretty big number when you see what we're doing, what we've got budgeted. I did have one question on the street, the infrastructure projects, and I saw it in, I think it was in your report somewhere, Eric. But okay, we're going to complete the current phase 3A this coming year.
3A2.
3A2, yes. All right.
Yes.
Okay, and so we've deferred the next big phase of the infrastructure project.
Phase 3A3 and 3A4, that's correct.
And I think you referred to it that we'll have to try and do that in the future. Does the staff have a timeline when that might be?
Shane and I discussed this morning, actually, in our weekly meeting, and I don't have a specific timeline, but we do not, as a staff, yet have a specific timeline. Some of it will be dependent on when we can afford to pay the bonds back. So I think you're looking at beyond 2026, most likely. But ultimately, what Shane and I plan to do is, kind of like what we did for the streets, where you have an asset management, what's called an asset management plan that says we have these streets and this is their condition and this is what we have done to maintain them, and when we need to do that, we need to do the same thing with the rest of our infrastructure. And so we're going to do that with the water and sewer system next. And I think that once we get there, we can better answer that question as to when, that might need to happen. But some of it is going to be dependent on when you can afford to do it. And I think that we need to start planning for it now, but I'd want to wait a few years so that we can get some of this debt down a little bit.
That's kind of how I'm thinking too. I wouldn't want to get any higher bonded debt than we already have.
And that starts to decline in 2026. So 23 through 25. 2022, you passed the budget tonight, so you can see where that is. We're doing quite a lot, but 23 through 25 is going to be a tough budget set at 3-year cycle because of that debt service, and it'll get easier in 2026.
So we really need to start doing some of this thinking, though, in 25.
Yes. We need to be planning for that now. In reality. Yes. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do. Ultimately we'll bring a plan back to you. It's not going to be right away this year, but it's going to be coming, and it'll be similar to what you saw with this street maintenance program, where you have, these things we're going to replace at these times. But Shane actually asked me a really good question this morning. He says, well, how far out do you go on that? Because, some of this infrastructure we're putting into this ground now is going to last for decades and decades. And we don't even pay the bonds off for 40 years. And so it might last 50 or 60 years. So do you plan for 40 or 50 years into the future? Well, that might be a little far, but we need to be looking beyond the 5-year horizon we usually look, 10, 20 years down the road. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the same position that you were a few years ago, where you say, well, what were these people thinking, about how we were going to replace this infrastructure previously? So yes, Councilmember, you're 100% right. We need to be thinking ahead, on this issue, and we're starting to talk about that. I think we want to get through this project for sure, because we don't know exactly, because we haven't bid the construction costs yet. So we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. And so we're hoping we might even have a little bit of money left over we can reallocate. We're for sure hoping we aren't short, because that's going to be an issue, but we don't know yet. And so we've got to get through this initial probably bid on the last phase of the ponds decommissioning and the last phase of the Center Street reconstruction before we can fully start to answer that question. That's a really good question.
A lot of uncertainties. Okay, any other questions of Eric? In his report. Okay, well, thank you. Now,
so, Mayor, the next item is Rosemary Martin is here to do a year-end report on the planning and the charter commissions. She's actually in a meeting in another room in the building, and she asked me to text her when she was ready, which I did, but about 5 minutes ago, but I don't know if she didn't get the text or not. But we could probably move on to that, and then if Rosemary comes, we can come back to her, if that's all right.
okay. Let's, we got new business. Okay. So, Resolution 2021-115, approving renewal of city licenses. And we've got cigarette licenses for Tracy Food Pride, Tracy Liquor Store, Casey's, and Dollar General. And we've got split liquor license, Sunday license for the Caboose, Bonnie and Clyde's, Tracy Eagles, Tracy Lanes, and plumber's license applications for Saltstrom's Heating, Water's Edge, Wilkes Plumbing, and GH Plumbing. Would the council like to entertain that resolution to approve A, B, and C?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-115, as long as all fees get paid.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Koopman,
Yes.
Landine,
Aye.
Powell,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. And we've got Resolution 2021-116, granting Charter Communications a franchise extension to December 31st, 2022. Eric, would you like to explain that ongoing resolution?
It's been expired for a while. Diane and I have been talking about this. We talked about it last year too. We need to get these franchises cleaned up. But basically, this just extends the current agreement. We've been doing this for I don't know how many years, a number of years.
So what's our option?
We don't have one.
We don't have any good options. Ultimately, we need to go back to them and try to get them to sign a new agreement. But we're such a small city that they don't really want to deal with us, is what it boils down to.
So is there any way we can discontinue it then?
Well, yeah, but we get about $30,000 a year, and so we could discontinue it and forego that money.
Well, wouldn't someone else have to pick that up, or wouldn't the other?
No, because it has to do with them having access to our right-of-way. And so no one else would have access to the right-of-way. So in reality, it would hurt us to the tune of $30,000 a year if you didn't do this.
And we'd be hurting or causing great inconvenience for the customers that subscribe to Charter.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's what we have to do at the moment.
Alrighty.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve this resolution, please?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-116.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Jones,
Aye.
Koopman,
Yes.
Teagues,
Aye.
Powell,
Aye.
Landine,
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. All right, moving right along here to Resolution 2021-117, accepting a donation for the Tracy Community Center. Eric?
So we received a $25,000 donation. It was restricted just for the community center, and so you need to, basically this resolution accepts it and then restricts it for construction on the community center. Is what it amounts to. And so it's added to that $139,000 you already have, which is why you saw the $164,000 number earlier tonight. So with this donation, we would have $164,000 restricted for the construction of a community center.
And this individual wishes to remain anonymous.
She did not say that she wanted to be remain anonymous. I don't feel compelled. We didn't ask, so I don't feel compelled to say it out loud necessarily. But
So that being said, that's for this year.
Yep.
When we get into next year, can other people donate strictly to the city towards the community center?
It would be the same process. We'd have to accept the donation and then add it to this. But yes, absolutely. At any time, anyone can do that, and we just have to vote to accept it.
They'd be better off going through the foundation. That way, they could be able to deduct it from their taxes.
Just asking.
Yep, absolutely. You can do that. Yep.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve
I'll
this
make that
resolution?
motion.
Okay. A second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Jones,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Whitman,
Yes.
Landay,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. All right, we have in our packets, we have a resolution explaining the need to have a policy on fund balance. And I assume everyone studied that carefully. Eric, you want to?
I'll set it up, and Chris is actually going to come up and talk about it. But basically, this is something that was recommended by our auditors that we have, and so I'm gonna set that up so that Krista can talk about it.
Yeah, like Eric said, our auditors recommend having a fund balance policy. Their recommendation is that we hold 35 to 50% of next year's operating expenses in an unrestricted fund balance, basically. It just provides added financial security to the city. It allows us the flexibility to cover any unexpected costs that might arise, emergencies, things like that, but also to take advantage of any unexpected opportunities that may arise. So basically, fund balance is the difference between assets and liabilities on the balance sheet. It includes cash, but it isn't always total cash available on hand. So we classify fund balance into 4 categories. So non-spendable fund balance is the balance that is in a non-spendable form. So like inventories or prepaid items, things like that. And then we have restricted. So restricted fund balance, those funds have constraints placed on them externally. So like our unspent bond proceeds for the Phase 3 project, that would be a restricted fund balance. And then number 3 is committed fund balance. So those are amounts that are designated by the council that have a specific purpose and are designated by a resolution. So like we just committed the $139,000 to the community center, or this $25,000 in the donation we just received. That would be a committed fund balance. And then we have assigned. So those are amounts constrained with the intent to use the funds for a specific purpose, but we haven't had a formal resolution to use the funds. An example of an assigned fund balance is in the cemetery fund. We assign those funds to the cemetery funds for cemetery operations. And then anything else that's left over after those 4 becomes unrestricted fund balance. So with this policy, we have set aside, outlined specific points for unrestricted fund balance. We would like the minimum to be 35% and the maximum to be 50%. So if, say, our fund balance goes over 50%, it's written in this policy that you as a council will make a determination on how that additional fund balance is allocated. If the fund balance should fall below that 35%, it is up to the finance director and the city administrator to create a plan to bring that fund balance back to a minimum of 35%. We also have a piece in here that authorizes the finance director and city administrator to allow the fund balance to fall below 35% in certain circumstances. So if we had an emergency or economic downturns, that would allow the finance director or city administrator to authorize the fund balance to fall below 35%. It just really puts some policies in place in regards to where our fund balance should be sitting. Any questions?
I think it's really well written.
Say the fund balance goes over 50%. Where does that money go then?
So this policy, there's a piece in there, it's on the last page of the policy. If it goes over 50%, the allocation is determined by the city council, how you want to use those funds.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve this resolution on the new fund balance policy?
I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 2021-118.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Randall.
Aye.
Bootman.
Yes.
Teagues.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. All right. Next, under our resolutions, proposed resolutions, we have a resolution approving payment to RNG Construction for work completed on the Phase 3A2 infrastructure improvement program to date. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Can I make a comment real quick?
Yeah.
Mayor. Just for the public records, everybody knows. I mean, officially, RNG is saying that they will not finish, the project that they were supposed to finish this year, which is to no surprise to anyone here or the public. But they are also aware that liquidated damages are accruing. That's not affected. That doesn't affect this particular pay app. This is just a regular pay app that goes through, and so we'll figure out what the procedure is for that in the spring, but we anticipate that they're going to, pick that back up again sometime in April, hopefully. But I wanted to get that on the record since we were talking about this here.
Well, that being said, when they bid this project, was it ever supposed to be done this year, or was it a 2-year type cycle?
The milestone, which is the one that they missed for October 1st, yes, that's in the contract. It was supposed to be done at a certain time, and they did not meet the terms of the contract. The full substantially complete for this phase is not until September 1st of next year. And so there's still some of the streets they have to do. And so we're not to the point of, the entire project. It's just this one milestone that they didn't meet.
The liquidated damages, when do we recoup them then?
Well, when we know what they are, because that'll be after we have certified that they reached milestone 1. We'll have to do an amendment to the contract to indicate that, and it will either be off of some future bill or they'll reimburse us with a check. We haven't determined that procedure yet, but ultimately that's kind of generally how it'll go. We'll settle up at the end of the project, basically.
And the liquidated damages are how much of it?
$79 a day at this point, and they've been accruing since October 1st.
7 days a week.
7 days a week, that's correct.
Who determines the check or the credit?
We'll have to,
Determine that.
that'll be part of the contract, and so we'll have to work with rural development on that. And so ultimately, we'll have a discussion about that, and we'll bring it back to you sometime next year.
Hey, any further discussion on this resolution? If not, roll call, please.
Teagues.
Aye.
Bootman.
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Randall.
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Yes. All right, I see Rosemary is here, so thanks for coming.
Yes.
Could you give us an annual report on the Planning Commission? And
Okay, you have that there in your packet. I gave you a rundown of that. We were busy this year more with putting together a comprehensive plan. The Comprehensive Steering Committee worked a lot more than the Planning and Zoning did. I think we had a couple of variances we had to deal with. And we're continue to work forward on the comprehensive plan.
It's double-sided.
Pardon me?
2 sides.
Yes.
It's front and back.
Yep. Good deal. So, and you got the report in your packet. Were there any questions concerning the report?
Well,
How many members do we are currently on the charter, and what
I
are
think
we
we're full.
short?
We have a full commission of 7, don't we?
It's 9 and we're short.
Short one. All right.
Are any expiring next year that have to be replaced that way that you're aware of?
No.
So we just need one more
We need
person.
one more, so at this time I make a plea to the community to come and serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We need one more person there. I know we need one more on the other commission, but I didn't know that.
What was that?
We need one more commissioner for the Planning and Zoning, so I'm making a plea.
No, not for the planning.
I thought you said planning, okay. I know we did for the charter, I didn't think we did for the planning, so I
I'm
misunderstood.
sorry if I did.
Yeah, okay.
No, planning is full, but we need one for the charter.
Yes, we do. So, David, I thought you were asking about planning and zoning.
No. Just the charter.
Okay, because we hadn't moved on to that report yet, so.
Sorry.
All right, so.
Got ahead of myself.
Alrighty, so planning and zoning, we do have a full commission. As I stated, we've been working on a few variances and waiting for the steering committee really to complete their part of the work so we can move forward with the comprehensive plan with a full commission. The Charter Commission has not met this year because we don't have a full commission. The people that were on the commission, one of them was elected to the council and others retired, did a phenomenal job of a lot of the heavy lifting to get the charter up to date. And that's, yes, we did a lot of hard work and they did a lot of hard work to get there. So now we have filled the commission all except for one. Once we have that commissioner in place, we can move forward with finishing the last bit of that work. And then that commission will probably meet 3 times a year. Quarterly, yeah. So, any other questions about the charter?
I just want to say the Charter Commission, it's not something the household word by any means, but it is important.
Yes, it is.
It comes up, so civic-minded people out there, don't hesitate to.
Well, the other thing is too, Seth, is we're at a place where we need to start replacing ourselves. So younger folks need to start stepping up for this commission, and the Charter Commission is a good place to start.
Good point, Rosemary.
Yep.
Then, Rosemary, in regards to the comprehensive plan, do you have a target date when you're hoping to have get to the final draft?
That would be when we are done with the steering committee, and then we can pull that together. Rosemary, Bruce White would give you a better idea of how that's going to work.
Probably spring.
Probably, yeah. I was thinking more towards summer.
I think Rosemary, last time she indicated to me it would be sometime in the spring.
Spring, right. And we were, again, having to meet Zoom, having to do a lot of punting because of COVID, so I'm impressed with how far we've come with that.
Well, thank you for your work on that.
Yep.
Comprehensive plan. Important.
Yes.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Rosemary.
No
and
problem.
Thank you to all of your fellow commissioners.
So I think we have a motion to approve the charter because it has to go to the courts.
Yes. I didn't, so you have to approve both reports, but definitely the charter, because the Charter Commission, that has to go to the end of the year report to the judge.
Could we have a motion to approve the Charter Commission report? That is in your packet.
I'll make that motion.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Jones.
Aye.
Landine.
Aye.
Tell.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Krupman.
Yes.
Teagues.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Going back to our resolutions, then we have a resolution, proposed resolution in front of us, 2021-120, regarding an increase in the fire department retirement benefits.
Dale was here earlier. I presume, based on the fact that he looked at his radio, that he had some kind of call, being the fire chief.
Well,
Otherwise,
what he had was his daughter singing a solo And by you not bumping him ahead, he had to forego this meeting to go watch.
I don't think anybody was aware of that. I think we certainly would have done that if we'd known
I
that.
guess I was, I just didn't speak up loud enough.
So I apologize, but it was a different fire drill. But Krista has the information on this, and she can talk about it.
Definitely. So back in November, the Fire Relief Association met with their financial advisor from Bremer, Matt is his name. Per conversations that I've also had with Matt, the minimum funding level for the retirement pension account in his recommendation is at 110%. Our fire pension right now is at 124% funded. The current benefit level for retired firefighters is $1,700 per year of service, and the Fire Relief is requesting to increase that to $2,000 per year of service.
Give me that number again, what was it?
It was $1,700, and they're requesting to increase it to $2,000 per year of service.
When was the last time that this figure was increased?
I know it's been a while. In talking with Dale, I believe sometime prior to the flood in 2018, it was increased because he had mentioned they were considering an increase at that time, and then COVID struck, and just the last few years hasn't been a good time to request an increase in their opinion. I don't know the exact date though when it was increased last time.
In your opinion, Krista, does the fund have the resources to handle this increase?
Yes. In talking with Matt, his projections that he did assumed a conservative return of about 6% annually in the fund. They've been seeing about 7.5%. So with a 6% annual return and increasing to $2,000 per year of service, he estimates our funding level to be at about 112%. And recommends keeping it at least 110%, and that 110 just allows for market fluctuations. The implication to the city is if our funding level falls below what is needed, then the city has to subsidize the pension fund at that point.
Has that ever happened?
It happened back in
2008,
let me see, I have it on a sheet, but I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was 17 or 18. The city did have to subsidize it. But I'd have to double check, don't quote me.
Jerry, were you on the council then?
You don't remember it?
I don't remember.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
I ended up like.
I don't remember throwing in money then, but I would have been the only one around. I'm the old man, so.
Yes, you are. That felt good to say.
For once, huh?
I can't believe we would subsidize in 17 or 18, and then Dale thinking they would maybe come forward for an increase.
Deficit in so this shows there was a deficit in 2019 in the account. I don't know if at that point the city had to subsidize anything, but the report that the Fire Relief has to submit to the state auditor shows there was a deficit of about $37,000 in 2019.
So that,
Does that drop it below the 100 and whatever %, just because they lost that year?
It
'Cause
might
there's that
not
room for
have.
that fluctuation.
Yeah, it might not have dropped. I don't know for sure if
I can tell you 19, I know,
we didn't.
I don't remember us subsidizing them.
I took that deficit of subsidizing it. I didn't look back at anything to see that we did.
but at this point, this fella from Bremer, this person, thinks if we would up it to the 2,000, it would be to sustain itself, provided the market doesn't crash or whatever.
Correct. Yep. And we would still have that. Matt's estimates were at, we'd be funded at about 112%. He recommends 110 for some of those market fluctuations.
So we'd still be,
So
should be
we-
fairly safe.
We should be, yeah, good. State statute puts a max of 2,100 per year on funding. So we're still about $100 a year below that.
But coming closer to,
Mm-hmm.
So this increase would be sustained by their funds. We would not be adding anything more into the budget or anything like that, so the citizens realize we're not pulling from
Oh, and I think
taxes
that's
or
an
anything like that.
important.
It's from their fund.
It's from their fund, and ultimately, we get money from the state every year for that fund that we pass along. It's like $27,000, $28,000, $29,000. It changes a little bit every year, but it comes into the city, and then we pass it on to the Fire Relief Association. There have been previous years where the city did put money into it. 2019 was one of those years where that money was budgeted. But we did not put any money in 2020, and we did not put any money in the 2021 budget, and we do not propose any for the 22 budget.
so what you're saying is that you don't see a need to even budget anything for it?
Well, we budget for the money that we receive from the state.
Yes, yes.
But we do not budget any additional taxpayer dollars, and we haven't in 3 years.
So, do we need a motion on this then, or what are you looking for, Seth?
Yep.
Yeah, because it's a resolution.
Yes, we have to approve it by resolution.
Okay, do we have a motion on the resolution first?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-120.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call, excuse me.
Pittman,
Yes.
Landry,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Teets,
Aye.
Motion Mayor Schmidt.
Okay. Does council have anything further to bring up tonight? I would then entertain.
We've got one more item here under city attorney, Mayor.
You're cheating Matt out of his time.
Excuse me, I didn't see that. Okay.
We don't often have one for him tonight, but he's a busy guy, so.
$400 an hour,
Okay.
you want to forget?
Matt, do you want to explain resolution on the opioids resolution?
Gladly, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. The federal government reached a settlement with the pharmaceutical companies that manufacture opioids in the opioid pandemic. It was a $26 million settlement. States share into that fund. Minnesota is going to receive nearly $300 million. Of that $300 million, 75% goes to each county in the state. 25% of that goes to cities with populations of 30,000 or more. That's a direct allocation. In order to receive those funds, the city of Tracy needs to adopt and pass the memorandum of agreement. The city will likely receive programs and services from Lyon County, and additionally may receive some funds from Lyon County. That will be a separate agreement that the council needs to adopt, but in order to receive any of the funds, you need to pass this agreement first. It needs to be passed and submitted to the Minnesota Attorney General's office on or before January 2nd. That's why it's being presented to you timely tonight. But I would advise you to approve this agreement as it allows you to at least receive some of the benefits and funds from the settlement.
Do we know what the funds need to be used for?
There's various different
And I looked through a little
options
bit,
and provisions and services. It's going to be opioid related. Are there services to help those in the communities that have been addicted to opiates, or are there programs that would go to opiate related items in relation to that?
Being somewhat naive, do we have a problem with that in this community?
It's everywhere.
It is?
Every community
Yes.
does.
Really?
I'm sure Chief Lichty could.
And this would just help, because it's also with training, like say for the police or the EMS, for when they respond to
the
potential overdose.
Narcan,
Yeah.
things like that. So it's something that the city, it would benefit the city in whatever way you receive the benefits.
I know, for example, that we do administer Narcan. We've had incidents that would be if somebody had an overdose of opioids or something like that. You can literally bring them back to life with Narcan. And so we our fire department and police department stock that. We use it regularly. So yes is the short answer. We do have a problem with that in this town.
I'd like to make a motion to do that, 2021. 2021, 121. Phew.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a question then. Does it say in here, let's say we get $20,000. Can we sit on that like to use to buy Narcan for the next 15, 20 years? Or I didn't see anywhere it's like that it has to be used in.
It's going to come from Lyon County, and they're going to have stipulations on what you need to use it for, when you need to use it for.
Okay.
So it will not be that broad. It'll be very specified.
Gotcha.
We can't guarantee we're going to get money
Correct.
from
Right.
Lyon County either.
No,
I want
correct.
to point that out because the allocation is going to go to Lyon County and they've got to decide what they want to use for. But we can't get any from Lyon County unless we pass this, is what it amounts to.
Okay, we've had a first and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Rutland,
Yes.
Keats,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Powell,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Pro Tem Mayor Schmidt.
Anything further? If not, I'd entertain.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I lost my legs.
Yeah, careful there. Dave was kind of.
Sit still, you gotta sign your life away.
Lead you astray. Yeah, that first one, that was a tough one.
Yeah, that was tough, but we got to stand behind the police department or